So this one is going to be another class-specific kind of rambling, but it's a bit weird. So all the classes available in 5e, they're all not created exactly equal. They're close enough, but I mean, if you follow any kind of game competitively, you would know that nothing's like that. Nothing is perfectly balanced. As much as developers try and get balance right, something's going to show up, something's going to be the best. It's just how it is. All you can really try to do is make everything usable. And that's easy. And in 5e, pretty much everything is, with one or two, I'm going to say, soft exceptions. So, in my humble opinion, the only class that's not super usable, especially in more combat-heavy, optimization-focused games / tables, is going to be the monk. And the reason there isn't because the monk's features don't exactly work, which they have some issues. And maybe I'll get into them in this video. I don't know how far I'll get. But one of the biggest issues the monk has is it's so dependent on multiple ability scores, what's called MAD. It's just the abbreviation for that concept. And unlike other classes that are also multiple ability score dependent, the monk wants all of its ability scores to be really high just to be, functional. As a monk, you need high dex, high wisdom, high con, just to be functional, more or less. Because you need your dexterity for attacking. You obviously need that to be high. Your wisdom contributes to your key save DC, which is mostly just stunning strike. And it also contributes to your AC. And you need con for survivability. But because monks have a D8 hit die, and they don't have any other defensive features that don't cost key, patient defense is interesting, but it's just not particularly strong. It's not worth spending the key on a lot of the time. So monks are going to have a hard time surviving unless all three of those stats, dex, wisdom, and con, unless all those stats are high, then they're going to have an issue. Then there's some other problems, like their martial arts dice starts really pathetically small. And in non-optimized tables, it's fine. Damage doesn't really matter in non-optimized tables, or in unoptimized games. But in optimized games, monks just can't keep up damage-wise with, sharpshooter, crossbow expert fighters, and your great weapon master barbarians, which I'll get to barbarian. That's another one I feel similarly about, but for different reasons. But yeah, the big thing for monks is just it's hard to get enough stats to work with. So something like if I were in control of 5e, something I would either suggest or just bake into the rules would be, and I would do this for barbarians too, but I'll touch on them. For monks, I would give them extra stats, either via additional ASIs, which I'd probably do in addition. One, I would kind of give everybody more ASIs. Really, I would split ASIs and feats, so you can take both. That works fantastically in the Ugliest Man Alive game. It feels really great, but not the point. So, what I would do for monks is either, if you take point buy, you get a few extra points. If you take standard array, you get to take the special monk array, which has 2 16s or something. Or if you're rolling for stats, the monk player, and probably the barbarian player, the monk player either gets to roll 2 sets of stats, like 2 sets of 46, drop the lowest 6 times, blah blah blah, and then they pick which set they like better, or just they get extra stats in addition to that, like they get an extra 4 stat points to allocate however they want. So that's an option. One of those or bake all those options in, because monks are just going to need higher stats in general. And the difference between monks and barbarians here is one of the stats that monks need are some kind of interest. So they'll be able to participate in roleplay and social encounters a little more readily. Like they'll at least have good insight, for example. Good insight, good perception, all those things. But then barbarians don't have this, because the 3 stats they need are strength, dex, and con, the 3 physical stats. And, you're playing a barbarian. If you're on an optimized table, you need all your physical stats to be good. And with point buy and standard array, you can get away with just focusing on those stats, getting a 17 strength, a 15 con, a 14 dex. Then you add your racial bonuses. You're fine. You're great. You function in combat just great. Problem is, now you don't have any. You can't. You kind of have to dump all your mental stats to do that. And as a result, you just kind of can't participate in a lot of stuff. And I want to say, first of all, I'm a big proponent of having at least 1 stat negative somewhere. That's really fun. But, if all of your barbarians' mental stats are negative, you're going to have a hard time. One, you can't do it. You can't intimidate. You can't pass wisdom saves. You can't know anything. It's just not. It's really limited. Because maybe I want to make a barbarian that's like a scholar at the same time. And based on, those point buy and standard array system, it's difficult to do that. It just is. So I would do the same for barbarians. Either give them just maybe a +2, 2 extra stats they can allocate, a special barbarian array, extra, a second set of rolled stats, or maybe 4 extra stat points that they can only allocate to mental stats. Either one of those is fine. There's lots of ways you can fix it, but as long as you do something to fix it. Just because those 2 classes in particular have this kind of stat-based issue. Every other class that's, multiple ability score dependent, like paladins, you can kind of choose how your build is focused. You could go lower strength and more charisma to be more of a support-focused paladin. You could just get enough charisma to, support your spells. Your spells aren't going to be, super potent, but that doesn't matter. You pick the right spells that you don't need to do any kind of save DC. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your charisma is. So, there's options there. There's room to play around in, say, with a paladin. Or with a ranger as well. They get a lot of their spells are just damage bonuses and things like locate object or hunter's mark, or conjure animals. They don't care about your spell save DC. They just care that you have the spell slot. So rangers can get away with lower wisdom. Now, to be fair, some of these classes, in particular, in addition to the monk and barbarian, the other classes I would rate as having issues are sorcerer, ranger, bard a little bit, maybe fighter, but fighter's a bit going into the quote issue I have with fighter is more the general design space, not strength or like how they reward the player, things like that. So, but specifically, still talking about Monk and Barbarian here. Like, going back to Monk, one of the main things they have is like that deflect missiles feature, where anytime they're targeted by a ranged weapon attack, they can deflect it, and if they reduce the damage to 0, because it like reduces the damage, then they can spend a key and throw it back. But it's like never worth it, because it's just a martial arts die, which it's fine when you're making attacks, but if like you're spending a key point just to do this, like at early levels it's like a D4 plus your wisdom, which if you don't have high wisdom, it might be a D4 plus 2, which is kind of like, that's what? 5 average damage? That's not worth a whole fucking key point. That's not worth it. So, one thing I was thinking about for Monk is basically give them these increased stats at character creation. And give them focus the character more on like high defensive features and evasiveness. Like, just make it easier for monks to get high AC. And then this deflect missiles feature, make it a deflect attack feature. They can just always use it to deflect attacks. So they have this high AC that they're always dodging. And then if they do get hit, they can reduce the damage with a reaction, and then if they reduce it to 0, they can counterattack. That makes it much more usable and more interesting. It still uses your reaction, so there's going to be choices there. That's a weird looking truck. Man, why is that truck so weird looking? Shit, I was distracted. Weird looking trucks distracting. Anyway. So yeah, do something like that. It's kind of more towards the big flavor of the monk that I feel would work better. Like, give them better defenses. And, their damage could use a little bit of help here and there. Like, one, bump all the martial arts die up a grade, so they start at a D6 and it ends at a D12 instead of a D10. That's easy. Give them, say, I've seen a lot of different versions of it where, instead of key equaling your level, it's like your level plus your wisdom, and I think it was what was it? Or maybe it was wisdom plus proficiency, and half of your key points regenerate on the start of your turn, so they're more usable. But you basically spend key on extra attacks and other things. So you could get really into the weeds as far as design goes, but something like just giving them more stats so they can get their AC a bit higher, giving them some kind of bonus to their saving throws, letting deflect missiles work on any weapon attack, and then later on just any attack, for example, so they can, say at level 6 when they get key-fueled strikes and their attacks count as magical, let them deflect magic attack rolls, melee spell rolls and ranged spell attacks and stuff like that. Let them parry those, because it's fun. And it keeps that fantasy going. And then maybe do, something for their damage. I don't maybe increasing the martial arts die is enough. Maybe they get, fighter style extra attacks, so they get up to third attack at level 11. They get flurry of blows, maybe, and then that goes, normally they have the bonus action attack, which I think keeping it as a bonus action attack, being a class feature, is a big thing, because I'm a big proponent of bonus actions being really heavily tied to class features. I don't like polearm master, crossbow expert, and 2-weapon fighting as they are. I don't like taking a feat to get a bonus action attack, but that's a whole separate argument. So, like, you know, they get their basic unarmed strike as a bonus action. It starts at a D6, so it's a bit stronger. Then, you know, they can use Flurry of Blows to improve, to get another one. Do 2 attack unarmed strike as a bonus action. Then they get, They get extra attack at level 5. Then they get a third attack at level 11. Something fell up. Man, Sheetrock fell over. I hate Sheetrock. They get a bonus, you know, they get a third attack level 11. And then maybe also at that level, they could start, their Flurry of Blows does 3 unarmed strikes. So now they're getting like 6 attacks. That's a lot of attacks. Maybe that's too much. Or maybe just Flurry of Blows gets upgraded. And then I would definitely add something like they can regenerate a certain amount of ki per day. Like the Dragonhide Belt magic item lets you, I think, regenerate proficiency bonus amount of ki once per day, something like that. So that's interesting. But, you know, making something like that a class feature, like they can spend an action or a bonus action to recover ki, maybe once per short rest, that could be cool. Because monks tend to run out of ki a lot. There's just not enough of it. So, you know. Barbarians don't need a whole lot. I think because they're so simple, all they need is some extra mental stats to help them in roleplay encounters. And maybe some other stuff here and there, but that's also more design stuff. But I'm not going to get too far into that now. This video was long enough.